question, please do so through the chat. If you'd like to add your pronouns, please feel free to rename yourself and add them now. All right, Danny.
Thank you so much, Lexi. Lexi works here at ANGA, and she has just been doing a phenomenal job this week, and we can't thank you enough for everything you've done to make this conference happen. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey to business ownership in the North Country. I am Danny Delaney. I'm the Businesses in Transition Program Coordinator at ANGA. And at the beginning of every program, of course, we want to thank the folks who made this opportunity possible. So I'm going to take a minute and share my screen and tell you a little bit about our sponsors. So we're very grateful to have Community Bank as one of our sponsors, as well as Glens Falls National Bank. This program would also not be possible without the support of the SBDC, specifically the SUNY Canton SBDC at Clinton Community College, who have helped us put together a ton of the different programming that is available this week and supports business owners and aspiring business owners like you in realizing their dreams. So thank you to all those places. Also, thank you to the Northern Border Regional Commission. They help support the Center for Businesses in Transition through a large grant. And we are just so grateful for their support that we can do this work every day. Why are we doing this? Thousands of Adirondack North Country businesses are owned by retiring baby boomers or folks who want to change their life or plan for the future. Of course, you know, last year, a lot of people sort of decided that it was a time for a change in their lives, whether that was a retiring business owner or maybe you as an aspiring business owner thinking about, you know, what do you want to do next in light of everything that's happened. It's just a time for big change and big growth for folks individually. So we really want to help you seek opportunities to own a business, and we want to help retiring business owners to think about how to make that transition possible. So here we are. All right, getting rid of this page. Next page. This event is designed to be a learning and networking opportunity for aspiring entrepreneurs looking to take over a North Country business. An opportunity to empower those who live here and those who want to live here to realize their dreams of business ownership. The center is a dynamic partnership between regional organizations. It's not one person, it's organizations from around the region who are interested in the retention of local businesses and the future of our communities. The goal is to help business owners sell their businesses on the open market, complete intergenerational family transitions, or convert to an employee-owned or cooperative model. We're not real estate agents. We're not business brokers or accountants or lawyers, but we are here to serve you in connecting to free and low-cost resources. At this time, we ask that all of our CBIT liaisons and lead partners put their information in the chat, sharing just a little bit about who they are, where they are, and how you can contact them. Please feel free to reach out to them with questions at any time. That's what they're there for, and they're looking forward to hearing from you. ANCA is run or coordinated by the Center for Businesses in Transition. ANCA stands for the Adirondack North Country Association. We're focused on growing a new economy that works for all. We focus on food systems, the energy economy, and the entrepreneurial economy. And if you're interested in supporting our work in programs like this one, please consider becoming a member. Last bit of news about this conference and what we're doing for the future for business owners and aspiring business owners. This week we are announcing a down payment assistance forgiveness program that will help address the lack of capital that is a barrier for low to moderate income and Black, Indigenous, and people of color looking to take over an existing business. After all of these sessions conclude, we'll be sending out emails to all the registered participants and asking you to either become a member of ANCA or think about donating to that fund to help someone else take over a business. Even $10, you know, something like that could really go a long way when a lot of people are reaching in to make it a reality. So we're really excited to be here today talking about big opportunities, big move, learn about the journey from folks who have made the trek. That's what you're tuning into today. And we are, not every session that we're having this week is focused on folks who are relocating here. A lot of them are for folks who already live here as well, but this one's focused really on folks thinking about relocating here. So we're excited about sort of introducing and welcoming some of our friends who have relocated here and want to share their stories with you. In the program, we were supposed to have a guest speaker, but unfortunately she was a little bit ill this morning. So instead, we're going to take a minute to show you a video that is one of our retiring business owners who is showcasing their business, you know, and letting folks know that it's an available opportunity. So we're going to play this video about the country florist and gifts located in Ticonderoga. So please take a moment and learn about this business owner. Then we're going to pop it back over to Matt Courtright of the Ticonderoga Area Chamber of Commerce. He'll be leading the panel today. He is the executive director of the chamber there. He's a great guy, more enthusiasm than I've met in so many other people. Smart. I've walked down the street in Ticonderoga with him, and literally everyone stopped and said, "Hey Matt, hey Matt, hey Matt." Waved out the window. He was like the mayor. It was amazing. So he's the guy to know if you're interested in starting a business or thinking about relocation to the greater Ticonderoga region. And he helps people with business plans and advertising needs and all sorts of great stuff. He's going to be doing the panel with himself and Erin from his office, and I'll let him introduce Erin. But we're just so grateful to have you taking the reins on that today, Matt. I'm going to show this little video and then we'll just kick it right over to you. Sound like a plan? Great.
Sounds perfect.
Can you hear it? Nope. I have this note on my screen that says, hit the button that says play sound. Do you think I did it? No. Okay. Try again. Hold on. Share sound.
Hi, I'm Francine Burke, owner of the Country Florists and Gifts in Ticonderoga, New York. It's a wonderful store and it is for sale for an ambitious person that loves flowers and would love this new opportunity. We are located right on the main street of Ticonderoga. We are on the Lachute River and we have plenty of parking. It's a wonderful opportunity for somebody that is looking for something new and fun and interesting. The building is on the historic registry. It's a very old building and it is a 2-story with lots and lots of room for many things. This upstairs could easily be changed into living quarters with plenty of space. We changed a lot of the building to accommodate our business. The flower end of it is amazing because we do all our work downstairs and we have a full basement, which we use for the major holidays. Well, we have lots of branches here in the shop. We also carry a beautiful line of chocolates that is always nice. Flowers and chocolates go hand in hand. And we all have a little sweet tooth. There's lots of good stuff here. Sometimes it's hard to keep out of it, but we try. We also have lots of different hand products and personal products, but lots of fun things, you know, not just for Christmas, but year round. The bread and butter of my business, the fresh flower end of it. This is my passion. I've got a wonderful customer base that enjoys the flowers. And we do, of course, right now it's Christmas time, but we also do year round arrangements for every occasion. It doesn't have to always be Christmas or a holiday. People have birthdays, anniversaries all year round. And flowers make you feel good. And even if it's a simple rose in a little tiny vase, this will bring so much joy to someone. And it's just makes you feel good when you can help a person express that.
So that's just one of the business owners that I don't know what's happening. Hold on. Okay. All right. Matt, take over for me.
Okay. I didn't want to interrupt you if you had something else to say. So.
Nah, you're good. Go.
Well, as Danny mentioned, my name is Matthew Courtright, and I'm the president and CEO of the Ticonderoga Area Chamber of Commerce. On the Zoom with me is Erin Mullen, who is our member service and event manager. The chamber serves as the business and visitor center for the greater Ticonderoga area and is a community liaison for the Center for Businesses and Transition. We're also leading and starting the process of launching a branded Small Towns, Big Opportunities initiative, which will be focused on the Ticonderoga area, but of course complement our work with the CBIT program and our other partner agencies. We have a great panelists lined up for today, and we're very excited. I'll kind of give a little introduction to each, and then I'm going to give them each an opportunity to tell their story. Following that, Erin will ask them a set of questions. And of course, if you have questions as attendees, please include them in the chat, and we will do our best to get them asked. So on our panelists today, we have Kevin Brady from Long Run Wealth Management. We have Britta and Devlin Hennessy from the Great Pines Lodge. We have Julian Mangano, owner of Della Terra Farm in Lewis. We have Emilie Cardinaux, owner of the Golden Cleat in Jefferson County. And we have Felipe Brandel, Xclusively Adirondack in Lake Placid. Thank you all so much for joining us and being here. So I'm going to call on you one by one to kind of give us your story. Tell us about yourself, your relocation story, or moving back to the North Country story. Let's start with Felipe.
All right. Thank you everyone for having me. So originally I'm from the South Bronx. I was born and raised. I didn't really have like a good coming up. Every single part of my life was a struggle. But I came up here back in 2011. I got an amazing scholarship to Paul Smith College, which pretty much gave me like a full ride. My main objective was like to get out of New York City, the habitat that kind of was really like burdening me. And so I kind of just stuck around, and just because I saw the employment opportunities and I saw the lower cost of living in comparison to New York City. And so I kind of just stuck around, and I worked in a couple of places. And I found out that working for people really isn't my style, and I wanted to do things on my own. And so I started Xclusively ADK to like kind of drive the competition in this town and to influence others to create this sense of competition in the community. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Felipe.
Good.
Emilie, do you want to take it over from here? Share a little bit of information about your relocation or moving back to the North Country story.
Yeah, so my name's Emilie Cardinaux. I actually have an interesting connection to the Thousand Islands, which is in Jefferson County. We're right in Clayton, New York, along the beautiful St. Lawrence River, which is still currently mostly frozen. So I have a unique story with connection to this area. So I'm actually a summer kid. My family has been here for generations. I'm a 5th generation summer resident, and my great grandmother bought a tiny little seasonal cottage in the 40s. So I've always visited the Thousand Islands in the height of tourist season every summer. And I only moved here 5 years ago. I was living and working in New York City, which is where I moved after I graduated college. I went to grad school there. I had a career in music and television. And I had been doing jewelry as a bit of a side hustle sort of since I was a kid. And I had designed a line of jewelry that was really inspired by life on the water. And so that was like the connection of the business to this area, which is sort of, it was a nautical line. So I thought, the TV show I was working on wrapped. My super expensive apartment that I was living in got sold. So it was like I had to move, and I came to a nice closure with the TV show. And I was like, well, I should either move to LA, that's where all the musicians are going, or Clayton, New York. So fast forward, I spent my first winter here in 2014. And I used that year as a sort of incubation period to see if I could transform this side hustle into a full-time viable business. And so that's how I ended up here. And I know that we'll be talking about it in greater length, but I own the Golden Cleat. I bought the building in 2018. So my storefront is like securely in that location. I live right upstairs, and then I Airbnb the 2 apartments in the summertime. So that's sort of like a second business. So I'm super happy to be here. It's been, quite an adventure, but I'm happy to call Clayton my full-time home.
Thank you so much. And we're certainly glad that you chose the North Country over California. So
yeah, or New York City, which was just so expensive. I mean, I totally relate to you, Felipe. It was like my apartment was the size of my closet that I have here. So it's an incredible quality of life that we have here in the North Country.
Julian, can you share your story with us and share a little bit about your relocation and moving back to the North Country?
Yes, I'm originally from Painesville, Ohio. That's in northeastern Ohio. After I graduated from college, I wanted to go to a big city. I wanted to be able to engage and have like a tremendous amount of excitement. So I moved to New York City and I lived there for 6 years. I mean, I had a great time. It was really fun to be in New York City in my 20s. That you can only imagine. But I worked with AECOM Tishman for a bit, and I was starting to like build a solid career in like project management. And my next project was going to be One Vanderbilt, but it would have required me to like commute down to Grand Central Station every day. Well, it's like for 3 years I was riding my scooter to work, and I didn't want to deal with that anymore. And I had always wanted to live a self-sustainable life. So I started doing some research and found Lewis County, and I saw that there was, more cows than people. So I was like, wow, this is going to be like saving grace. It's not going to be the Bronx that has 26,000 people per square mile. I'll be able to find like a peace and centered ground. So we bought land. When I first moved up here, I stayed off the grid in my cabin for 7 months, me and my lady and our cats. But then we bought a house in Watertown, New York, and that's where we've been for the past 4 years. And I still go out to the cabin and stuff. We're planning on building something on the land this year, hopefully. So that should be exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Britta and Devlin, can you share a little bit about your story and relocation and or moving back to the North Country with us?
Yeah, so our story is really similar to like Emilie's. Actually, I'm 5-year, 5th generation. Summer kid. And so I grew up loving the area. It's always been like my safe place and my sanctuary. And the community like spoke to me even into like my older years. When I met Dev, we always talked about how amazing the community is. And we lived in New York City, worked in New York City, San Francisco for a while. Not to speak for you, but he had a career in marketing. He worked in Soho. I worked for Prada on the Upper West Side. Like we had really great jobs and jobs that anyone would envy, opportunities to travel. But like we always felt like something was missing. And that kind of hit us when we went to buy a house in New Jersey in the suburbs. And we both had like mental breakdowns because we started evaluating like what our life was actually going to look like. So many hours a day commuting, making tons of money, but it seems to just be going out the window because our whole life was really expensive.
We spend less on rent right now than we did on commuting. Individually.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice change of pace.
And so then we started talking about like our future, like, is this the life that we have for kids? And if I wanted kids, does that mean I have to stop working? Do I have to sit home by myself all the time in a town where I have no friends? And so it just snowballed into this. So we didn't have any particular skill set like making jewelry or something that we were like, oh, we're bakers, let's go find a place to open a bakery. We just had like lifestyle mental breakdowns and realized that we needed to make a change. And then from there launched into like, what can we do? So I guess that's a valid point for anyone that's like, I need a change, but I don't know what to do. Like, don't be discouraged. We bought, it was Northwoods Inn at the time, an aging resort with 2 restaurants. I don't think there was actually 2 operating at the time, and 30 hotel rooms. And we literally just renovated it for almost a year and figured it out. Like literally Googled at night, where do you buy pillows for a hotel? Like we had no idea. And we've been doing that for 5 years now. Did I miss anything?
December 2015.
And now we have 2 kids and they love living here. It's the best ever.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're glad to have you for sure. Kevin Brady, you're up next. Why don't you share with us a little bit about yourself and your story about relocating or moving back to the North Country?
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I moved back to the North Country in 2014, also from New York City. It seems to be a common theme here. My background's in finance. I worked on Wall Street for a bunch of years, did, similar, to the prior folks, just, had good jobs, did all that kind of stuff. But, again, was sort of missing, the outdoors, missing the ability to sort of reconnect. I grew up in Saranac Lake, so I had been out of the area for 25 years. So it was a great opportunity. My kids were sort of also on that tipping point when they were just exiting grade school and sort of heading into middle school. So it was kind of that inflection point where do you stick around and sort of get deeper into the schooling systems in the city and the, sort of the suburbs, or do you make a move? And so we opted to make a move, and it's been great to get back. There's obviously quality of life's huge. We'll speak about that a little bit more later, but I think one of the big things is again, life's pretty short, so you want to make sure you can sort of take advantage of these things. Obviously, you got to make a living, you got to be able to do stuff, but there's a lot of opportunity in the North Country. And it doesn't have to be in your exact sort of, traditional field. You got a lot of resources. If you've worked in a bigger place, you probably don't realize how many different skill sets you actually have, and they can be utilized a lot of different places. So, I think that's the big thing, sort of going out on a limb a little bit or taking chances. I'm still working in finance, but it's at a much, sort of smaller retail level, working with local families, kind of across the North Country into Vermont as well, but it's definitely a very different style. It's way more low key, way more in sort of, you're in people's homes, and sort of it's a much different style, but it's great. It gives me and affords me a really nice lifestyle, and obviously it's impactful for the area too. Financial literacy, stuff like that. You kind of really, when you step back and you come back to a place like this, you realize that's missing. That's missing from a lot of places in the world, but it's definitely missing from the Adirondacks and the North Country. So we've done a lot of education with our clients. I do a lot of board work. I do a lot of sort of volunteer work. So it's a good, there's a great, you can really move the needle up here. I think that's one of the bigger differences too. Your ability to be impactful is pretty significant here, compared to a New York City environment or something like that, where, unless you're going to donate, $10 million to some charity, you're not sitting on any boards. So, it's obviously a much different scene here.
Thank you so much. And that was definitely absolutely true of living in the North Country. You certainly can have a huge impact, and you can get easily engaged in the community, and the community is certainly welcoming to that. Before we move on to the questions, I'll just share a brief story from me. So my father was also a summer kid in the Ticonderoga area, always coming up with his family. When he graduated his high school, him and my aunt moved to Ticonderoga because they loved it so much and wanted to get out of New Jersey. His parents followed, and the whole family moved to the Ticonderoga area. When I graduated high school, I was born and raised in Ticonderoga, grew up here. I did leave for a number of years, and kind of similar stories that everyone else lived in cities, but quickly realized that while I loved exploring the world, there was nothing better than the North Country, and I felt it calling me back. And it was that quality of life that I wanted for my future family. So kind of similar blended stories of how I ended up here, left, but also came back. So I'm going to introduce Erin Mullen at this time. Erin is also from the Ticonderoga Area Chamber of Commerce, and she is our member service and events manager. And she's going to take over the questions from here. Erin.
Thank you, Matt. Just a reminder, if anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If we have time, we'll certainly get to those in just a few minutes. I do have a few questions for our panelists. Kevin, if you don't mind staying on the mic, I'll start with you. What sort of advice would you give someone who's considering moving to the North Country region?
I think it's interesting when you look at somebody posted in the chat, or Danny posted in the chat, the 14 counties that sort of cover the North Country. I mean, it's such a broad area that I think, you want to take your time. There's a lot of places, there's a lot of different styles, there's a lot of different areas. Obviously you have very remote, sort of off the grid almost places, and you have places that are, much more, definitely not urban, but at the same time, at least there's a little more action going on. And you got to find what makes sense, particularly if you're coming from a metropolitan area. I think some people sort of view this like end of a dirt road, nobody around sort of scene as something that they love or they really strive for, especially if you're coming from the Midtown Manhattan scene. But I think the reality is you got to really be comfortable with that. We see a lot of folks come up here and they're at the end of a dirt road, nothing going on, and it's 20 minutes to the grocery store, and they're sort of like taken back a little bit. So I think just understanding sort of what you're getting into, I think, is a big one, and doing some due diligence around those towns and those areas. I think you want to ask. There's so many local business owners that you can sort of speak to. I think most people, if they're not super busy, will give you the time to sort of catch up on, what their story is, what the challenges they see, trying to understand what opportunities are. I think that's a big one too, is just getting as much feedback as you can and doing some real planning around it. As I mentioned earlier, I got pretty involved when I first got back. You find in these communities, there's so many nonprofits and so many areas that need help. Particularly if you have some basic skills, which I'm sure everyone on the call does. You can really sort of get involved and network pretty quickly and try to understand what your opportunities are. So I think that's something that even from afar, people can do that. So if you're sort of interested in coming back to an area, there's probably some nonprofits that you can get involved with or come up and volunteer for, or do things, particularly if you're, coming up here in the summer or the winter or whatever it might be, to sort of meet some people and get a feel for what's going on. I think in general, that those are sort of the things. I mean, the towns themselves are pretty unique. I think, we're like Felipe are over in the Tri-Lakes. It's probably a little busier than some of the other parts. Obviously Clayton in the summer would be super busy. There's a little bit of everything going on, but it's, you want to figure out too, if you're in a really seasonal community, versus a more year-round community, that's different as well. How critical is it for you to go to the movies or to grab a cup of coffee from Starbucks or something like that? If that's really important to you, then obviously you got to migrate to some areas that have a little bit more of that. If having, 50 miles of trails outside your front door is something, then there's that too. And frankly, you can probably find a little bit of everything in each of these communities, but it's, for me, that those are sort of big parts of it, is just kind of finding the right spot. And I think maybe even renting and just sort of getting a feel for what places are like before you maybe dive in. And as we've said on the call, I mean, rents are pretty reasonable. You can probably try a few places even and check places out, rather than sort of fully commit to something.
Those are all really great tips. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Sure.
Emilie, I'd like to ask you our next question. What was the first thing that drew you to the North Country area? Was it a business opportunity? Was it a quality of life that you expect to find here?
So as I touched on my introduction, sort of the business idea that I had was very much connected to this area. So it was a natural extension for me to try to launch that here. And the personal circumstances of my career and my life at the time kind of gave me that little pause so that I could take that winter and see if I could transform that idea into something that would stick, that could be a successful business. So it was all intertwined. And then there were everything weighed in my mind, the pros and cons of, okay, great, I've got to get out of New York City because I can't do this in the city because my cost of living there is just going to be so astronomically high. You can't just press pause. I mean, I was able to, when I got bought out of my apartment lease, when the whole block basically got sold in the East Village, I paid cash, literally stacks of cash to somebody to rent an entire riverfront apartment. Just the way Kevin was saying, like there's definitely opportunities for that, especially if you're in a seasonal community. The Clayton's very seasonal, and the tourism is just like explodes, and then it's just so quiet in the wintertime, relatively speaking. So you can get a great deal, and if you really want to move, it's like and you are thinking of a seasonal place, I would highly recommend coming there in the winter time, because it's just so romantic when you're here and everything's buzzing. But seasonality and 12-month profitability is you have to really weigh that, because it's such an issue in so many locations. It's one of our biggest struggles that we're working to make our business profitable all year round. And it's definitely on the up and up every year. There's more businesses staying open longer, and that's the trend. And, here we are to make that happen in our communities. But I guess, yeah, so just the feasibility of it from a dollar standpoint. And then I did have existing community here. So it was, you know, family and friends. The challenge there was that everyone disappeared and I had to totally start from scratch and create a new community and new friend groups while I was basically living off my savings and trying to start a business by myself. So I hope I answered all the parts of your question. A lot of common themes here, you know, of this whole city, you know, the culture, and then you get here. That winter when I moved here, it was 2013 to 2014. It did not get above 4 degrees the entire month of February. I can't tell you how many times my pipes froze. It was truly challenging, I mean, in a huge way, but absolutely worth it, you know, to work through. And I was able to do it with just, you know, a few $1,000s for the entire winter. And that's just like, that's what I was paying for 1 month in the city. So I bought time and I built the community and I built the business here. It all kind of was related.
Thank you, Emilie. You did answer the question. I think you tied it nicely with some of the things that Kevin was saying about making sure that the reality of your situation meets the expectations of what you think is going to be coming up. So Britta and Devlin, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you the next question. This is a rural area. People may assume that there are limited services to assist you in moving here and starting a new business. Who or what did you lean on to make your relocation possible?
Oh, and I think to Britta's point earlier, we definitely had a good source of community here. That was definitely a huge draw for us. So that was a key component. It has been challenging, and not just ourselves. We've also seen it with employees that we're trying to bring up, trying to find housing and trying to find just the common things that you would see in the larger areas can be challenging. But the one thing I've noticed that is beautiful about it, going back to the community side, is once something pops up, I mean, you're the first person to know, and everyone really works together to help you. Everyone wants. The beautiful thing I think I'd like to say about up here is that the real sense of community that, you know, most people would look at, and back in our old life would look at some of our best friends as our, you know, competition in the dog eat dog New York City world. But really they become your best resource and your number one, you know, go-to. And it's been a really nice thing to have that sense of community and the ability to reach out and have that arm of, although it's small, it's tight knit, everyone's here to help each other out.
Like things feel really impossible. Like we literally rebuilt our property, and there's not really much. Like we have an adorable main street. It's so cute. Oh my God. But like major construction resources and that kind of thing, limited. And we'd need something really simple, like a shop vac. And we'd just be like, how are we're so far from Lowe's. And then I'd be like, right, like all our friends and all the other business owners. So I just like go on Facebook and be like, I need a shop vac. And I swear to you, within 5 minutes, I would have like 3 brought to me. Mm-hmm. And so when people say like, oh, where do you shop for clothes? I'm like, well, the internet. How do you get things? Well, like my friends. You know, I don't blame people for being fearful of that, for like, how do I get up there? How am I going to start everything? Community, like you have to be willing to not just make friends, but you have to be willing to get involved. You have to get on boards. You have to volunteer. Like it has to be like your success is so reliant on your ability to immerse yourself in the community and town that you're in and support. Someone mentioned it before. I made a really good point, like support the areas that need supporting, and then people are going to show up for you. You can't look at this. Anyone that looks at this as a money-making venture, like I want to move there, I'm going to open this business and make tons of money because I know it'll be successful. Like you're going to struggle if that's your main goal. Your main goal should be immersing yourself in the community, thinking of how your business is going to impact the community. How can you personally help? And that is the only way to succeed, to be honest. And the money and success and all of that, of course, would follow with a great business opportunity. But really, you need the other people here to help you.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It's a lifestyle.
I think that's the key component to it, is that it's got to be something you want. And I think, you know, earlier it was mentioned that the winters, you know, everyone, if you don't love the summer up here, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with you. But personally, I moved up here for the winter,
So weird.
and it's like my happy place. You know, our biggest marital dispute is in April when she's like, all right, we're closed for the season because the trail's closed. Where are we going? I'm like, let's go north, find more snow. She's like, absolutely not. So I have 2 little boys now that are on my side. I'm going to be winning this in the near future. But until then, we will be going south to appease, you know, the mama.
And that's another good point, is like, try to be here year round. There's a lot of people that come into a community, open a business that's just open in the summer. They're just here in the summer, and then they're elsewhere the rest of the year. And it's harder for people to get to know you. It's harder to have that support group. So like, really, we recommend, like, anyone that's looking to do this, like, be ready to like fight for it on all fronts, get involved, be here all the time. Just big picture, the whole thing.
And I think the one last thing to mention too is that I feel every single situation we've gone through, like just finding housing and everything, is definitely a challenge, and all the other aspects. Usually when we feel like we're about to give up, that's always the moment that everything kind of comes together. And it goes back to the community. It's always there. You're always going to have the ability and the resources to get what you need. It's just a matter of putting forth the effort and really dedicating yourself to what you want.
Sorry that there's 2 of us, and that was probably long.
Totally okay. It makes my heart so happy to hear you guys say that the community is like one of your best resources. Felipe, you're up next. Let's get real. There are challenges to moving to a rural area. What were they for you, and how did you overcome those?
So my challenges coming to the rural area were like, they were very different compared to anyone else's, or just the challenges in general. For me, the biggest thing was finances, because and like mental illnesses that I personally kind of faced, because I came from an area that was full of gang violence. There was a lot of drugs. Actually, I'm a product. I'm one of the drug babies of the 90s, and homelessness, and like everything about New York City was just very violent for me growing up. And so like I really struggled, and like I didn't have this sense of family. I didn't have this sense of like community in New York City. I spent more time on the streets than I did inside a home, just because I became a product of my environment. And so when I moved up here, like everyone kind of pushed me to move up here. It wasn't something that I was like, yeah, I want to go live in the middle of the woods where there's no people and there's more trees than there are cars. Like that wasn't like the ultimate plan. My plan was to get as far away from New York City as possible, because I didn't see any opportunity there for me. I came up here and I started Paul Smith College in 2011. And I just had two duffel bag suitcases and $10 to my name. That is it. And that's how I started. And I wanted to make sure that I never step back into that situation. And my intention was like, you know, I want to create opportunities for my brothers and sisters that also had a similar uprising like mine, to show them like, if I can do it, what's stopping you from doing it? And so I wanted to give that kind of like mentality. Like a lot of people are scared to fail. They think that once they fail, that's it. We blame somebody else for that. The only person that I ever blamed was myself for like the longest time. And so by blaming myself, it like motivated me to not give up. And so I like to instill that ideology of never giving up. There are a lot of challenges of moving to a rural area like this. You know, like you can't go out at 2 o'clock in the morning and get a bacon, egg, and cheese. You know, but there's also that sense of community and that sense of like hope. And I really just relied on a lot of my friends and just asking them like, hey, can I get a ride to the DMV so I could take my permit exam? You know, it was little things like as little as something like that, something that's seemed very basic for everybody else. It was like the biggest biggest thing ever for me. And like, you just really have to open up and and kind of throw it antisocial, throw that out the window, become as social as possible, talk to as many people as possible, and let them know who you are. Let them know where you come from, and see how you can help them. You'd be very surprised of how many people are willing to help in this community.
Thank you, Felipe. I asked you to get real. You got real. Thank you so much. Julian, you're next. How has your quality of life changed? I hope that it's improved, but maybe it hasn't. Tell us what you think.
So when we first moved up here, like I said, we lived off the grid in a 12 by 24 cabin on our land, solar power, bucket showers. For many, that might seem like a lower quality of life, but for me, I was in heaven. Like, it was being immersed in nature, being one with my environment, having like this, like, more in-depth processing of like the symbiotic elements that exist, in my microclimate on the property. But after that, Cloud 9 element kind of started to diminish, the reality set in. The farm wasn't as profitable as it was planning to be. So all farm labor had to begin to occur. There's been times where, I've juggled 2-3 jobs and I still go out to the farm and am doing work, like Devlin mentioned recently in my mind. When you think about the North Country, I've been saying it's a lifestyle. Like, you come up here, especially in the winter, you have to, deal with the mounds of snow. The snow's on my street right now, like up to my chest, because of the snow plows. So that's really, really something to consider, and the seasonality element. My lady and I talk a lot about like missing out on the food in the city, all the different cultural engagements that can occur. But a lot of times I just offset some of those like things that are lacking perceptually and consider like my access to nature is amazing. I can get to the Adirondacks, I can get to the St. Lawrence Seaway, compared to spending, thousands of dollars for rent. In the city up here, we don't have rent. You know what I mean? So there's those elemental trade-offs. I'm not where I want to be ideally in terms of quality of life, but I feel like the process is being engaged. And I think, like it sounds like Devlin, Kevin, Emilie, Felipe, all the plans kind of, in some ways just kind of formulated themselves and things start working together, and happens organically at times. But I think a definitive plan helps out, so you can have like a plan B, a plan C, if what you ideally wanted to have manifest doesn't play out. But yeah, I don't know. Am I answering the question?
100%.
Going off, but quality of life is a perception, right? It's whatever any individual wants. It's so, in the thick of all the work that I do, I know that it's what I want, and I know that there's impact and strides being made to, live a fruitful and enjoyable life.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective because, we can say it's all sunshine and roses all the time, but as good of a quality of life I think I have, when you see the snowbank up to your chest, it's like, oh no.
Yeah,
so it is a process. I like that point. Thank you so much, Julian. A question for anybody who wants to jump in is the internet service that's available in your area. Tell us about that. Tell us if it meets your expectations, if you have any suggestions for people who obviously we're living in a internet world. So who wants to hop in and talk a little bit about what they have? Felipe?
So I'm a big Call of Duty fan. Play a lot of video games. Don't judge me. I have my fun. So I live in Lake Placid. Is the most, like, I would say, urbanized area within the Adirondacks, and we have Spectrum internet, and Spectrum isn't the greatest. I've been in New York City and have better internet providers, but considering that where they've come from and what they've done within the past 2-3 years and how they've grown, I would have to say they're heading in the right direction. They just need to pick it up a little bit better. But it's not bad at all. It's actually pretty good when you narrow it down.
Thank you, Felipe. We have a question about cultural diversity, as Julian had mentioned, especially for kids. What, if any, diversity do you see daily, weekly, seasonally? Anyone that wants to hop in and answer this one?
I'll dive in there. Along with my farm, I work at the local community college, and fortunately there's some diversity, like the leadership. There's a Black president, Black VPs, and the student body is integrated. And it's interesting. There's some like divisive tension at times, but then you also have Fort Drum. So like when I'm driving through Watertown, it might not be like the diversity that you see in New York City or any other major city, but you know that there's people from all over the country here. You see all the different license plates. When you go to Clayton in the summer, there's people from all over the world up in the St. Lawrence, so you got to find your niches. But from the cultural element, like going to plays, going to do art stuff, there's that. It's not, the scene isn't that large, but over the lake, you can get to Kingston, Ontario, and that like is where a lot of people get their cultural fix.
Thank you, Julian. Britta, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so I can kind of piggyback on like Julian's awesome point. I have 2 kids, and this is like a huge concern of mine. Like, I've lived in the city, I've traveled the world, and obviously coming to a town that isn't diverse and is really remote and doesn't have a lot of foods, culture, that kind of thing. We do have an awesome art center. I do want to acknowledge that, but it's a huge concern for me. But I think as a parent, speaking to all the parents out there that might be worried about that, you're going to spend your entire life making these decisions and prioritizing things for your kids, right? So when I was thinking of my kids' lives, when I was living in New Jersey outside the city, they were going to have access to all of that. And that was really exciting, but they weren't going to have access to nature and the outdoors. And I was going to have to travel for that. So you just have to think like, okay, like, this is important. I've chosen to be closer to nature. That's going to fulfill that need in our life. I don't have to work hard at that. That's just going to come automatically. Like, my kids' favorite thing to do is we make a fire in our driveway in the winter and eat soup next to our bonfire, and they love it. We spend 1,000 hours outdoors a year with them. That's our personal family goal. I have to work really hard to educate them on world issues, different types of people. I buy books. We travel to the city. We watch programs. Like, you just have to put in the effort, because certain part of your life is going to come automatically, and other stuff you're just going to have to work harder at. But it's totally possible, and it's relative. Like, we take an annual trip down to the city. We go to Syracuse. They're little. They're only like 20 months and 3 years old. So it's a lot of like book reading for us on like different types of people, how do different families look, like that kind of thing. So you just have to work at it.
It is possible.
It's possible. Like, that's such a priority to me. And I am committed to my kids not suffering in that way at all. And I'm pretty confident in my ability to do that.
Thank you, guys. Emilie, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'm just enthusiastically nodding my head, and you know, it's a different perspective, of course, when you have kids. I'm hoping to have a family someday, and you know, these are things I think about constantly. And I totally agree with you, Britta, that it is a trade-off, but it's also like, you just make it work. It's like, yes, I miss the restaurants, but you know what? I really got great at cooking, and I go out to eat and I'm like, I wonder if I can make that at home. So it's a trade-off, but it's also just it's a balance, you know? So the things you used to travel for are not the same things you travel for now. And I love being that this is my home base, and that the other things are that I visit too. I mean, New York City is always there for me. I actually opened a store there in the end of 2019 and signed a 10-year lease on a commercial storefront on February 15th, 2020. Hindsight, I guess, is 2020. So I just was gonna do the New York thing and open the second store and got the apartment and paid so much money to get out of it all. And I'm like, well, that's the universe's sign. Like, visit New York, get out of there. I still have all my furniture in a truck, you know, it's in a trailer. It's like, oh, well, so forget New York. Detour. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with what everyone's saying. Just an enthusiastic nod over here.
Erin, can I just mention that on that topic, kind of echoing what Devlin and Britta said, you do have to make a conscious effort to do certain things, but also there are a lot of unique opportunities throughout the North Country and Adirondacks, and it's also being engaged in community and really stay on top of what's actually happening and what is available. I know through our area and conversations, people often come to us with issues and concerns, and 9 times out of 10, we already have that opportunity for them.
Excellent point. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, panelists, for answering those questions. There are a few questions in the chat that we didn't have time to get to, but everyone's contact information is in there. So if there was a question that you had an urge to get an answer to, please reach out to whoever you wanted to have answer that question. And I'm going to toss it back to Danny. Thank you, panelists. You were wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Wonderful. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Erin. Thank you all to all of our to all of our panelists today to share your story. We just are so appreciative. So if you are available tonight at 4 p.m., we're going to be talking about how to get the financing to take over a business. So please tune in for that. Same Zoom link. You don't need to find a different one, which has been a nice thing this week. If you want to meet with an available business owner, whether or not you've met them before, you can make a 10-minute one-on-one appointment with them at the link in the chat. Lexi will throw that in there. So we have some appointments available tonight and appointments tomorrow afternoon with business owners. No commitment, just talk to them, find out more about their business if they're interested, if you're interested in learning more. Please, if you attend the Saturday brunch tomorrow or set up a one-on-one meeting with a business owner, you'll be entered to win a regional experience package. So please do that. And any questions that we didn't really get to as we've gone throughout the week, we'll be also answering at that Saturday brunch session. Very low key, very just conversational. So you can show up and just get to know more or ask questions. We'll be sending out more information after this. We're wrapping up at 1 p.m. right now. If you want to stick around for a second, I am going to play a little video about the Adirondack Fragrance and Flavor Farm, and the video is put out by the New York Makers. And if you want to see that, it's an available business opportunity in our region. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see most of you again at 4 p.m.
I always wanted this farm to be productive in some way. There's the milkweed over there and the monarchs are over there, and you know, the bees are out, and there's so many things going on that you don't even think about. My name is Sandy Main, and my New York State of Mind is all about the scent map of New York State. From the salty seaside to the streets of New York City with all the wonderful smells of the restaurants. The Finger Lakes smells like fish and lakes and lavender and grapevines, up to the Adirondacks where we have the beautiful majestic white pine trees, the beauty of nature everywhere, visually and sensually. My family was part of the largest Danish settlement in the Finger Lakes, and I was very happy living there in the Penn area. But I went to Potsdam State for college, and I accidentally met my husband there. I won a horse, and so this horse kind of made it so that I had to find a farm to keep the horse on. So we found this farm, and very affordable, so we moved here, the two of us and the horse, and that was sort of the beginning of me living in the Adirondacks. When I was in my early 20s, I took a great interest in medicinal and fragrance herbs. I wanted to have a business that I could share my love of the natural world with other people. And I had a friend who had an herb business. She was selling culinary herbs and fragrance herbs. And I thought, what could I do that would be different? I had this flash one morning about my grandmother and her soap making. Like, she did it with me once and I never forgot it. I was like, I could make herbal soap and I could use all the beautiful scents from the Adirondacks. So then I started studying it, going to libraries, trying to figure out how to make soap. I just had a feeling when I plopped out my first batch of cedar, I used northern white cedar oil. I remember it plopping out onto the counter with this resounding thud, and I just knew that my whole life was going to revolve around that. This friend came over and she was going to teach me how to blend oils, so she just showed me the very basics, and I made my first oil, and she was like, wow, this is wonderful. So I thought, well, it's either beginner's luck or I have a nose. I founded it in '79, and then we moved here in '82. And I ran it out of this house for 5 years. And then it got very crazy. The whole house was like a factory. There was only one room in the house that wasn't used for the business, and that was the bedroom. You know, what we really need is to keep pushing our brand, you know, the Adirondack brand, and you're going to go there and you're going to find all these interesting things going on. And there's a folk life here, you know, and I really get a lot of satisfaction out of making products that can bring happiness to people, because I'm happy when I'm making them. I think that should be everyone's goal, is to bring happiness to yourself and each other.
All the arts are not separate, the same. They're all after.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you later.